Welcome with all of your color going on your fabulous shirt there.
Well, you have been a big inspiration to me, so I wanted to bring it today.
We're bringing it. And not only did we bring it, we are looking at the videos that Chad Holmes created. Chad, huge shout out to you. Thank you so much for being willing to share your content, to have us kind of talk through what about it is working, what about it isn't working. But Chad, the whole reason you reached out is because it isn't working.
Well, absolutely true. And I want to say, just like you had mentioned, Katie, a sincere thank you to Chad for giving us all this opportunity. Although we're going to get some very targeted feedback, these lessons and these insights are going to be applicable to anyone who's doing video content at this
Yep.
point. And I just want to say, there's something about inviting that constructive feedback that really, really makes a big difference. So thanks again, Chad.
So we're just going to dive right in because that's what the show is all about. You guys are here. You're taking a few minutes out of your day. So we want to get right to it. So this is one of a series of three. So Chad created three videos with this Sassy St. Peter character. So we're going to actually look at the video in a minute, but we just want to spend a few minutes first talking about those initial impressions. Like, what are we kind of seeing here that would make it work or not work? Derek, what is your very first impression?
Well, I think you're going to speak to this as well. There's a lot of negative space here in terms of the background. So we're introduced to Chad, who apparently is playing the part of an angel here. Again, without the context, we'll watch the video momentarily. But we're seeing a lot of negative space, and the framing is a little off here. And so I'm seeing what looks like a book, although I've got to do a little work. Looks like there's a pen. And then I want to hand it over to you in terms of production values here.
Yeah, well, and my very first thought when I first saw this was kind of two or three key things. First of all, Derek, did you grow up? I grew up with those square TVs, the big, huge. I mean, must have weighed 6,000 pounds, right? Huge square TVs.
Oh,
You
totally.
too? Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that was my first thought is this is square TVs. When is the last time anybody walked into a store and sold a square TV, saw a square TV, right? We've moved everything to widescreen. And so I'm seeing this a lot even in presentations. Companies that have been around for decades are still in that old 4x3 square format. So everything graphically has moved on from that. Yes, Instagram is still square, but aside from that, right? It's widescreen. Videos are widescreen. So my first thought was like, oh, this was done 20 or 30 years ago, right? That was my initial assumption. And then when you do look at that video quality, right, that it is out of focus, it's a little bit blurry, right? Like you said, all that negative space, meaning everything around Chad or Sassy St. Peter here, it just is it's empty. There isn't anything there where there is an opportunity to see more of him, of the book, of the pen. And we talk about that a lot with video is, unless you're getting extra creative, which he is here, but in a different context, you always want more room below your chin than above your head. So we really want to emulate sitting across the table from someone. So we don't want to be down here in virtual meetings, in videos, and anything. We want to be seeing more of the full body of the person.
Yeah. Yeah. I just made sure to check myself so that I was doing as we say. Totally. Well, and the other thing too here is we're going to talk a little about a bit about this in terms of sort of the narrative structure here, but we're also clearly seeing a character, right? And so context is going to be very important, particularly if this is your introduction to Chad and to his firm. So that's something else that we want to keep in mind is just what are we seeing, right? Because again, I'm having to do quite a bit of work in terms of backstory. I know this is a still, the video makes this a little clearer, but if we're talking first impressions, that's something else that as a viewer, I'm having to construct more than a video in which that context is a little more apparent to me, makes available.
Yeah, and two other things, and then we'll dive right into actually watching. We're going to watch two different clips of the video separately,
Okay.
but the other things, and we're going to dive into this more in future live streams. But a big thing is YouTube is a search engine, and so Chad clearly put a ton of effort into this,
Yeah.
and you want it to be found. And the only way that people will find things is if it's actually titled what people will search. And I don't know that anybody has ever searched Sassy St. Peter, right? So that's kind of like
Okay.
there isn't enough of an audience to have a character built up where people are searching for it. So we're looking at the title here, and then there isn't a thumbnail. And so again, if you
Yeah.
think about Google and you think about what you're searching and then what you click on, same thing with YouTube, you're going to search for it. What are those results? And the thumbnail does matter. And there
Yeah.
isn't a thumbnail. So again, that first impression is, oh, was done a long time ago. It looks a little bit older. So Derek, if you want to share another thought while I get this pulled up for us.
Yes, absolutely. And it actually dovetails with what you were just saying, Katie. And that is, I'm seeing this a lot with influencer videos. So we're seeing a sort of playful approach to aesthetics. We're seeing a playful approach to these sort of videos and these segments that are hearkening back to this lower production quality. It works really well when it's intentional. And it's one of the things I think we'll see in this video is that's not entirely clear in this case. And
Yeah.
if this is something that Chad is going to continue to develop, I think that that's one of the things that he'll want to be more conscious of. Is that how intentional are you being with production values? If you're being playful here, and Chad does an excellent job of being playful. If you're being playful with the production value, that really needs to be clear to your viewers from the very get-go.
Yeah, and I just popped it up here. I'll pop it up here again. Sean, thank you for your comment here. Chad's videos rock. We totally agree, right? The content rocks, but because it hasn't taken off and we're looking at why, and to Derek, to your point, and Sean, kind of to your point, like they rock. And my first thought, the first thing I said to Chad was, are you doing this on TikTok? Right?
Yeah.
Are you doing it kind of on a platform where you can create those characters where it's working really well? So agreed. Like there's so much good going on here, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like we need a little more of that foundation built and a little more of the other things. So let's quickly play. How about the first like 20 seconds here? Derek, again, just give me a thumbs up when make sure we can hear the audio.
Oh, it looks like you gave a lot
Yes.
of money to charity during retirement. Very nice. Wait, cash? Am I reading that right? You gave cash to charities? Yes. Why didn't you make qualified charitable distributions from your IRA? What?
So I want to make sure we also pause it here so that we see this other character as well. So Derek, your thoughts from that content perspective.
Well, again, we're also here looking at a lot of negative space. And I know we want to touch upon what's filling that negative space, right? Irony of ironies there. But also, again, great opportunity to play. And when I look at this, I can't help but think, again, hearkening back, I'd say a few years, but it really is several decades at this point, to Terry Gilliam's work with Monty Python, right? That intentional sense of collage for video. I think there's a lot of potential here to play even more intentionally with that. But as a viewer, I'm not quite convinced that's happening here. So it's creating a little bit of visual dissonance for me. And I want to hand it over to you in terms of taking a look again at that negative space that we're seeing.
That negative space. And Derek, I try to be so easygoing. I am very Switzerland on a whole lot of things when it comes to content. One thing I'm not is these virtual backgrounds. So now that you guys got to see that video, right, in both characters, as Chad's moving around, like bits and pieces of him are falling apart and flying away. Maybe that gives a little bit of an angel feel, right? But then here, those virtual backgrounds, not good. They're not good. They are so distracting. And again, it makes it often feel a little bit older, right? Like before we knew how to do green screen well.
Oh, and that's a great point. And again, very, very important to consider. There's a sweet spot that we're aiming for between low production value, right? The sort of handheld, I'm on a walk, I'm
Yep.
just kind of giving you my thoughts, and that sort of glossy studio production. all of the research is suggesting that if you're finding your way to a middle point between those two, you're wind up appealing to your ideal client when it comes to your video marketing. Now, one of the other things here that I want to mention, again, from a more narrative perspective, has to do with timing. And Sean, again, I want to say, I think there's so much potential here. And Chad, I want you to continue to develop this idea
Yeah.
because it is such a clever idea. I can't believe I'm the guy who's about to say this. It's a little too ambitious in terms of its creativity right now. And I think one of the reasons that's true from a narrative standpoint is comedy, which again is definitely one of the appeals here. Comedy's all about timing. And the pacing of this sketch or routine is just a little off. And so, as viewers, again, we're kind of waiting for the punchline. We're waiting for the cut that's going to take us back to Sassy St. Peter. We need to make sure that, as from a viewer's perspective, this is moving at a pace that we're expecting. And there's something else that happens in this video I think we'll take a look at in just a second.
Should I jump forward to?
I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to take a look at. For me, one of the ways in which, like, one of the moments in this that I truly did stop, and not stop in terms of a sort of, hey, let's kind of unpack what's happening here,
Yeah.
but in a, oh my goodness gracious, this is an advisor that I'd want to work with.
So let's make sure they see that.
Don't let your parents get burned at the gates. Proactive planning as their power of attorney can get you to a better place. Maximize their legacy and your inheritance. Formula Wealth. Also, I'm not a mean person. Jerk St. Pete is just a character. You come here for help, not for judgment. So book a free, judgment-free intro call today. Thanks.
All right. So again, to me, the entire backbone, the foundation of this campaign, and I love what you said earlier, Katie, about kind of moving this cross-platform, right? Kind of using YouTube as an anchor point and creating clips that you can post on a social channel like TikTok, possibly like Instagram. It's going to drive traffic to your YouTube site. That moment in which Chad looks into the camera and says, "You come here for help, not judgment," to
Yeah.
me is at the heart of everything that succeeds in this video, and really is going to be the fulfillment of all of the promise of this particular campaign. That is just such a stunning moment because it's unvarnished. It, although it may have been scripted, it doesn't come off as scripted at all. I feel like Chad's just speaking directly to me in that moment. And the
Yeah.
more of that we see in here, the more effective this video marketing campaign and everything that's built out around it's going to be.
Yeah, and I agree, and I would actually love to see, and maybe I'll hop on a call with Chad and maybe do a LinkedIn post on this, but I would love to see the back end with analytics. YouTube tells us when people fall off and stop watching a video, and I'm with you, Derek. When I got to that, I was like, this is beautiful. I was like, Chad's so good on video, right? So compelling, just speaking right to you, just came across, very caring. And I was so concerned that a lot of people never got to that they saw it up front and they were like, oh no, I'm being judged, which is a huge concern that so many people have. And Chad's trying to, make light of this, if that's what can happen, and he's not. But also, he doesn't yet have the audience or the brand awareness to go down that path, right? If everybody already knew, yeah, you come to me for judgment-free advice and then built on that, right? That might work better.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point in terms of kind of maybe reversing the framing here. This is a running joke for those of you who watch the television show Doctor Who, reversing the polarity, if you will. I think leading with that really sort of authentic appeal allows you to create the scaffolding or the framing
Yeah.
that is then going to set up Sassy St. Peter and really let your audience settle into it, right? Enjoy the humor, enjoy the sort of sketch comedy that's happening. And like I said, we were both smiling throughout. There's some
Yeah.
real high points in that particular video. So, there's a lot to work with. I really do think this is just a case of recalibrating to draw out the high points.
Yeah. And again, last thing I want to say, make sure we're kind of staying under our 15 minutes. We have 27 seconds, even though it's supposed to be 10 minutes, I know. Again, absolutely love the creativity from Chad. So many financial advice videos are so boring, so uninteresting, right? People don't want to watch it. A+ on the creativity, on trying it. And it's about just kind of seeing, okay, what worked, what didn't. We talked about this a little last week with that viral post. Some things are going to work, some aren't. So take it as a lesson, whether it's working or not, and say, okay, what can I tweak here? Keep trying, keep iterating,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, and also too, Chad, we can't thank you enough for really
Yeah.
setting an example. This is exactly how and why the show exists, to be able to help advisors with very specific, real world problems they're encountering with their marketing. So kudos to you for reaching out to us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to all learn from your experience. We really, really appreciate it.
We do. And we've got a few more shows coming up where we've got more examples that people are sending us. Sean, thank you. Thank you to so many others. We're going to be lining those up, and join us next week. Derek, you'll be back on the road again. So I will be joined by Nikki Clark of Nikki Clark Marketing. And we're going to be talking about doing a little bit of a LinkedIn profile makeover.